Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Jesus reminds us to watch for the signs of his return. Today we will explore further what we are seeing in our times that line up with what signs he said would indicate the potential of the end and his return. We will also discuss the practical meaning of this as we watch and as a remnant prepare as he so leads. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, Kathy, how's it going today? We're in End Times Friday today, so
good morning.
end of the
Happy
week.
Friday.
So we're excited about that. Quite
Always
exciting. What's going on. It was fun to have Ned and April on yesterday, and great stories. And
They are one of my favorite New England couples. I tell you what.
Yes.
What a blessing it has been to get to know them and just to watch how God has worked and continues to work in their lives is just a privilege.
Yeah, it really is, and it's fun to how they walk together and have come together and learn to abide, and boy, they got lots of exciting stuff happening in their life, and it's fun to be part of it. And they attended a retreat where they really weren't together at all. And Ned was really an unbeliever, and he came and accepted Christ and started his walk, and he was gifted right away with hearing God's voice. So it was fun to see how beautiful that worked, and now they're living the life of the covenant, blessed to be a blessing. So it's quite fun. And as we
they are a dynamic couple.
Yes, as we talk about the end times, I'd like to talk a little bit, introduce today about, we're going to get into the seals, which is really the precursor to the tribulation, and the opening up of certain things which indicate, it's on its way soon. And soon is always relative. God soon. I know. I've always known one thing. God soon and my soon are not the same.
Two very different things.
So for me, it's like, okay, well, any day now, right? And he said, it could be decades, and the way I see time isn't the way you see it. So,
but nonetheless, as we see these seals being opened, then we know we are progressing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, Jesus said, "Watch the signs."
Yeah.
And realize that the time is near. And you I love the analogy you gave, and I use this now all the time, is birth pangs. And the birth pangs get more intense, and they get more frequent.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, it happens. And it's an indicator, hey, it's happening, get ready. And then as it accelerates, that it's getting closer and closer and closer. Interesting enough, and this is kind of why I think this analogy holds up. I can remember when we had our babies, you would wait for these birth pangs. And we kind of, obviously you generally know, well, you're, a week away, 2 weeks away, because we kind of know that the timeline, which is 9 months or so.
Right.
And Jesus has told us that, when Israel returns as a nation, that generation will see the end. So I think we're nearing the 9-month period, but when we had our babies, the doctor, nobody could say, well, you're going to have the baby on this day.
At this hour, at this time.
You're just going to have to wait for the birth pangs. And then even then, you'll just experience it, and as it gets more intense and more frequent, you're going to have to wait until it happens. And so it's kind of an interesting analogy that really holds up for the end, is that we could be seeing birth pangs. They may be getting more intense and more frequent. So we're headed that way, and pay attention. And remember, in Revelation, he said, listen to what I'm telling you. Make sure you process it and then do it, follow it. So it's kind of important. So as we do that, one thing I wanted to talk about, you and I have talked about the vaccine.
Right.
And the issue of the vaccine, and lots of different viewpoints about what it is, what it isn't. A lot of people that I've talked to ask me the question, is it the mark of the beast?
Right.
Well, I can pretty safely say no, because the mark of the beast is hand in hand with a one world government.
Right.
And I'm not talking about
which we're not there yet.
I'm not talking about the potential of a one world government. Now
but it actually being in place.
It actually being
yes.
Literally, there'll be a day when they'll say everybody is now going from your nation and your government and the way that you did things to operate under this one world government. And that's a for sure. That's the beginning of the tribulation. Right. We're not there yet. And the mark of the beast goes hand in hand with that. And that is that you have to demonstrate the mark in order to participate in the economic system. And by the way, God tells believers, don't take it.
Right.
And of course, the argument is going to be, yeah, but that's going to be difficult because I'm not going to participate in the system. He said, yeah, I know. I'll provide for you. And by the way, this is why we might have to be asking the question is if they're accelerating and it's near meaning years or within 10 years or 15 years, are we to prepare something differently? Are we to get together in community? Are we to think about something different, which he may be telling us? So we have to ask that question. But the vaccine, so by definition, it is not the mark of the beast at the moment. But what I wanted to talk about is that it's I believe two things about it. One, it's showing us what the mark of the beast is going to look like.
Right.
And it's going to be a registration. It's going to be a acceptance, and I join it, and I say yes to that. There's an electronic way that it's measured, which is what the vaccine passport. Right now, a lot of people have to carry their card with them, but they're going to try to move that to an electronic piece. So it's on your phone. And
I believe they have, am I right in saying they've already done that in some countries?
In some countries, they're already starting to work toward that. Not universally, because they got to still work on getting it done. And in America, again, the technology is being worked on, but it hasn't been fully implemented yet.
Okay.
And then third is that if you don't have that mark, you will be refused certain things, and particularly joining the buying and selling of the economic. So, so the passport, again, isn't the mark of the beast, and it's not absolute. So God can still say, yes, go ahead and take it. Others no. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that it's a very good visual to what it's going to be like. And that is that there will be a way, and by the way, John, here's what I think about this, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the mark, but John said he saw it on your wrist and on your forehead. Right. So what I think is he saw a phone and a Apple Watch.
Oh, interesting.
And because what you do with an Apple Watch is you'd put it up to the reader, I got it, or you would look into it because that's how my phone is identified. That it's me. It looks at my image. So I think what you do is you lean in, and John said it must be on their forehead and it must be on their wrist, because he talked about two different places that it is. Right. I don't think it's an implant. I just think it's an electronic device.
That's interesting.
Interesting enough, either you have the device with your wrist, or it's you and your forehead that shows that you're the mark of the beast. So it's a type, and it's illustrating to us that a government can say you must. If you don't, you will be prevented from certain things. Like, for example, there's employers right now that say you must take the vaccine. If you don't, you can't work for us. Well, there's an economic consequence.
Right.
Interesting, and this is funny. Pfizer, vaccine maker. J&J
Right.
vaccine maker. Moderna vaccine maker.
Mm-hmm.
As employers, they don't require their employees to be
Oh, do
vaccinated.
they not?
No. They say, we would like you to be,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to be to still work
Right.
for us. And if you don't, you just got to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that a little bit ironic.
That's interesting. Yeah.
When all these other companies are saying you got to be
Right.
vaccinated, as opposed to maybe they know something that we don't fully understand, and they want to give people the freedom to choose, which I would prefer, by the way, is that, again,
Right.
because I see it on both sides, and God's will can be on both sides, is it would be better, in my mind, economically, if you just said, well, either be vaccinated or agree to get tested and prove that you don't have it. Okay, good. That gives you freedom. And then the other thing is, in New York City, we see it kind of taken a deeper place. By the way, France has taken the same thing.
Right.
And that is, if you don't have the vaccine, you can't do anything. You can't go to the store.
Australia, I believe,
Australia
is
is
also
that way.
taking a
You
very
can't buy
strong.
food. You can't go to the store. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to an event. And they put it into, in the city. And France has even got to the point where they they have bouncers at the front door of food grocery stores. And if you don't have it and you try to enter, the bouncer is going to bounce you out, literally throw you out, and say you can't do it. It's not possible because you don't have the vaccine. So all I'm trying to help illustrate is that two things. It's a type of. It's showing us, and I think, to me, that's one of the birth pangs. Because one of my questions has always been, how is that going to work?
Right.
And God says, well, do you see? And it's like, yeah, I see it now. I see how it could be a government authority. By the way, the CDC is the government authority, which they don't have the right to do, which is funny. That everybody says, well, because they said we're gonna. It'll be interesting to me, and there's been cases that have been attempted to be presented to the Supreme Court, and they've rejected them.
Right.
So it's interesting, to see where that goes. But so you have a government authority that said this is what you have to do to join the economic system, and it's like, okay, I see that as a picture of.
Right.
And now the birth pain, maybe that's a birth pain.
How it could happen.
This is how it
And
could
you
happen.
can see actually a level of desensitization to that sort of requirement happening, because this is, kind of turning up the boiling water on us there, where we see, okay, this, you get used to this, and then the next thing that happens, it's not as much of a shock to the system.
Right.
So
That's right.
you can see that as well.
Yeah, because when it happens, by the way, most of the world, including a lot of believers, willingly take it. I mean, they don't even think it's bad. They think, okay, great, no problem. It's a good thing.
Right.
It's a solution. The other thing that I believe is that God is teaching us that since the world is going to get tricky, and maybe the birth pangs are accelerating, that because it's absolute not to take the mark of the beast, you have to learn to hear my voice. You have to have confirmation, by the way, in community with other believers that say, yep, we see that. And no, we're not supposed to do it, because God says, I've got to train you to follow my will.
Right. And as you say that, one of the things that I think about, part of that training that I'm seeing going on in my circles, I'm seeing a lot of people really wrestling with identity lately. And I think part of that is, in order for us to wholeheartedly follow him in this, we need to let go of our identity as Christian and Republican, Christian and Democrat, Christian and anything, Christian and mom. Our identity is Jesus. And that's it. And we've got to land on that our identity is Jesus, so that when the storms hit, we are anchored in and fixed on one point. And that one point leads us to truth. As long as we are Jesus plus anything, we are going to be off kilter.
Exactly right. And therefore, if I said to you, Kathy, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
You would respond, I'm just a follower of God, living in his kingdom, learning to follow his will.
Absolutely.
That's it. And there's really no other question for me to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, but are you like me? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you this? Are you that? Do you want to take the vaccine or you don't? I need to qualify you. No.
Right.
I just asked you a simple question. How do you identify yourself? I'm just a follower of Christ, which means, well, then we're brothers and sisters.
Right.
And together, we're going to walk into God's will because you have a heart to do it. I have a heart to do it. And nothing that we might see differently is going to divide us.
Right.
Because we truly are going to go all the way to seek God's will,
yes.
including, like right now, I can be in the room with somebody that is in the opposite perspective of me on the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And my only question is, well, I've got it settled. How about you? Right. Yep, I've got it settled. Hey, well, it's different than mine. See, I rejoice. Hallelujah.
Right.
That's what God said to you. We can be in the very same space together. Let's walk together.
Yeah. And truly, you're not even on opposite. You have received opposite answers, but you're not on opposite sides, because the side you're both on is, I value God's will above all else.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm so
excited
receiving different answers.
And by the way, we talked about this actually Wednesday when we talked about God's will. I'm so excited about that I rejoice with you that you got confirmation and you're walking in God's will. Yeah. And now, by the way, that's one thing you got resolved. What else you got going? Do you know God's will for that? Do you know God's will for that? I'm going to walk with you, and I'm thrilled and excited that we get to do that together. And I don't even see, because I don't care about the answer, other than I've done the same thing and I've received my answer and I feel good about it. And by the way, I know there's consequences on either side of it. Okay, now what?
Right, absolutely.
Now what? And hey, by the way, I can help you with your now what. You can help me with my now what. Why? Well, we're brothers and sisters in Christ. And what it's going to be characterized it's called the remnant community. The remnant, when it comes to the tribulation and the one world government gets put in place, and the mark of the beast is being asked to be given to everybody.
Which, by the way, is simply immediately going to put all truly abiding Christians in this category that you're talking about, this remnant. We're seeking his wisdom, but we are going to be on the outside of everything we've known how to function as normally.
Absolutely. And we're going to be called foolish, by the way, because remember, and then we'll get into this, but the beast is the system, not a person. And we're going to talk about that. But the beast is a system, not a person. So that if I said to you right now, a example of that would be New York City. Well, New York City is not a person. It's their government that they've decided the system is such that unless you have the vaccine, you can't. Well, that's not a person. That's not an antichrist. That's the system. Well, that would be a representation of the beast. The beast is the system. So that when this happens, remember, it happens because the world has collapsed economically. The beast, the system, which we'll describe it later, comes up with a solution.
Right. That people embrace because
they willingly embrace it because they see it as we're suffering, and now we don't have to because the beast, the system, they won't even call it a beast, it'll be the system. The new government, the one world government, has a solution. Isn't that great? You got to take the mark. Okay. Yeah, sure. And actually, here's what's going to happen. There'll be a lot of believers that will say to we who understand the truth, no, don't take it. They're going to say, how foolish are you? You think this is the tribulation. This is God's answer to the problem.
Mm,
And that's what's going to
interesting.
flip on us. And the believers are going to be against believers and say, you
Mm-hmm.
guys are idiots. You're foolish. You're seeing this wrong. You're off base. Um, yeah, you nutty guys are crazy, but we
Mm-hmm.
who are of the remnant, who understand it, God's going to confirm for us. This is it. Don't take the mark.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, here's how a lot of people get around that. I just read it today. It's really interesting. It was describing an article. It was describing the vaccine passport,
Mm-hmm.
and they said it just like I'm saying it. It's not the mark of the beast, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a good picture of the mark of the beast. And then they
Mm-hmm.
say this, but don't worry, because we'll all be raptured.
Right.
So don't worry about it. Well, that was an interesting comment to me. Well, then, if that's true, which by the way, personally, I would really hope that that's true.
However.
But because of Scripture, it's not clear that
Mm-hmm.
it's absolute. It's one of those things that, well, that's not absolute, so we got to go pursue that. What I read is that believers are going to be here at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the tribulation, faced with the choice of taking on the mark of the beast. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what I do understand is I got to get prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have community with me that's going to support me and support each other to confirm, don't do it. Yeah, there will be consequences, but trust God.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be, and why we're saying this to everybody is consider, are you willing and able to process abiding and process hearing from God and knowing His will? And if not, go deeper into that so that you can learn it. God says, I want to train you in that. And then
Mm-hmm.
secondly is do get a group around you.
Yes.
And again, let me phrase it a different way. Let's assume it's another 100 years away. Okay, none of us will be alive.
Okay.
So all right, we could see it, we could think it, we could say, I think the pangs are getting there. But by the way, other generations have felt the same way.
Okay.
So I still understand that it could not be the time, and I'm good with that. And that's why I can't predict that. Oh yeah, for sure it's gonna. I can't do that. By the way, nobody can. But let's assume that that's so. Here, let me phrase up why you need to get a community anyway. I do know this because of what's happened, particularly recently.
Mm-hmm.
The world is getting much more difficult to maneuver. The
Yes.
consequences are going to be dramatic and quick,
Mm-hmm.
which means we're going to have economic issues of. And by the way, I experienced this, and so did you, and so did everybody listening to me. We experienced it in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that went fast. It went from boom, 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 and everybody now there's a big unemployment issue. Everybody's scared. Everybody's got a problem, and it went fast. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying those things, regardless of whether we're in the birth pangs or not, we are going to experience that.
Right.
And I had at the time, and you had at the time, a community that
Mm-hmm.
helped us walk through that. And so I'm saying to everybody, learn how to follow God's will. That's a for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's just life as a believer is supposed to be, whether it's great times or not
Exactly.
great times. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then secondly is you do need a body of believers around you
Mm-hmm.
that are willing to go to God together with you. And whether you call it a remnant community or just my small group or whatever, make sure you have one.
Mm-hmm.
And go to facilitate it. Ask God to get you to the right people at the right place. And I've seen that happen over the last 6 months where people have said, I don't even know where to go. I said, well,
Mm-hmm.
just ask God. And then all of a sudden they get introduced to something and somebody, oh, look at this and look at this. And all of a sudden they got this great community around them. Because to
Mm-hmm.
see God's will, let me give you that community. It's really, really
Absolutely.
important. So, and I know you've got one, and that really
Yes.
is a beautiful thing for you to live in and enjoy.
Yes. And, whether it is dealing with, future stuff with the tribulation and everything to come, or simply life circumstances. And, even the last time I met with my ladies and we were helping, one of the ladies was really in a crisis about what to do with her job. And she was in the middle of the crisis so much that she couldn't see the forest for the trees. And the rest of us saw with such clarity and could easily say, okay, go back and tell us again what God told you, stepping into this situation. Well, he said, and she pulls out her journal, whatever. Okay, do you see, do you see what you just said? Even what he's already told you is the anchor here. So what's keeping you from stepping into that?
Right, right.
And we're able, and I just got a text from her just a little while ago saying, hey, by the way, thank you everyone for bringing me right back to the truth I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Not that I wanted to hear, but that I needed to
Yeah.
hear. And I want you to know I confirmed this with my husband again, and I'm stepping out in obedience tomorrow. Pray ahead of it. And that's what we're there for. That is community,
That's beautiful. Okay, well, we're going to go as we move on to the signs and the birth pangs. That in chapter 6 of Revelation starts the opening of seals. And remember that what he's talking about in picturized is a scroll.
Mm-hmm.
And a scroll is wrapped up, parchment that is wrapped up. And so what we get to see to start with is the basically the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all rolled up. So he says, I'm going to open up the scroll and the seals. The scroll basically starts out with a seal, and the seal would be exactly like we've seen in movies. When you ever saw
that wax seal,
wax,
that impression,
the wax impression, where they would they'd put it on there, melt it, and stamp it.
Okay.
It hardens, so that letter, that document is sealed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. It was that's how they did it. Same thing. And so as we're undoing this, it starts with, when it says seal number 1, first seal, that's the one on the outside. Okay. So I open that up, break it basically. I unroll the scroll to the next seal. So while they were doing it, and this is really cool, which is to demonstrate the amazing truth and beauty of God, it had to be rolled up from the end to get to the beginning.
I never thought of that.
So the end was already written.
Right.
And they wrapped it up. They started out, and it's
this would have been one continual scroll.
One continual scroll
with seals along the way.
Seals along the way.
That's fascinating.
And again, the picture of it would be, if you ever rolled up like a small carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you start at one end.
Right.
And you roll it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger,
until
finally you get to the final one, the end of it.
Right.
Well, you started it on one end and you finished it on the other, and on the one that you finished on, that's the outside.
Right.
And the inside is what you started with.
Yes.
Okay, what God had to start with the end first. He had to roll it up, and then what he did is he rolled it up, and then he put a seal on it. Rolled it up some more, put a seal on it. Rolled it up some more, put a seal on it. There's 7 seals. And so when John says the first seal, it's not the end, it's the beginning.
Oh, that's interesting.
It really is interesting. These seals, there's 2 fundamental interpretations of them, and that is that we know for sure that they happened prior to mid-trib. Because at mid-trib, through the abomination of desolation, when the Antichrist said, I'm God, that begins the bowl judgments from God. Okay, so this is prior to that.
Okay. So all seven seals are prior to
Seven
the
seals are
first
prior to
bowl
that.
judgment. Okay.
Then the question is, okay, does it start at the tribulation?
Mm-hmm.
Or are these seals that open up prior to the tribulation, that get to the tribulation?
Right.
Which could be very, very true. And we'll
Okay.
talk a little bit about that. So that he says certain things that we could say, that could be already happened. It could have already happened, or maybe it's ready to happen, or it's going to start happening. And it might be the annunciation of, hey, this is now that this is getting to the birth pangs are really getting close, and the tribulation is getting pretty close because the seals are open. And the other aspect of it is they don't necessarily happen again in our timeline. Boom, boom, boom. They could be. This opens up, and maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6, 10 years later, the next one opens up.
Right.
So it doesn't mean just because the first one opened up that the other ones are going to go right away.
Right.
His
However,
time frame,
they will be sequential.
They will be sequential
Okay.
because of the way it's done, leading to the end, by the way. So we know the last one isn't going to happen before the first one.
Right. Right.
Because it's really pretty cool. Okay, so
That's cool.
go ahead and read Revelation 6, 1 through 8. These are the first four. There is a difference between 5, 6, and 7, and 1 to 4. So we'll get to that in a minute. Or actually, we won't get it to it this time. We'll get to it next time. But go ahead and read Revelation 6, 1 through 8.
Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the seven seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he came out conquering and to conquer. When he opened the second seal, I heard a second living creature say, "Come." And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth, so that people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. And when he opened a third seal, I heard a third living creature say, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine." And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting.
Very, very.
And again, the part of the reason that there's a strong argument that this is prior to the tribulation is that these first four particularly, that during the tribulation, and remember it's a 7-year period, the 1 week left of Daniel,
Right.
7 years. We know that mid-trib is when the Antichrist said, "I'm God." The last 3.5 years is the wrath of God. And the first 3.5 years is really the building up of the power and admiration of the Antichrist as somebody who's good.
Right.
Somebody who is pleasant. And because we use the word Antichrist, we think Satan. Which, by the way, Satan's behind it all. And they partner up as the Holy Trinity. Satan, who becomes, in essence, remember, he's counterfeiting everything.
Right.
So Satan becomes the essence of the Father. I'm directing traffic. The Antichrist would be his son, ruling on earth. And then the false prophet, who is a Christian identifier, joins the effort and says everybody should follow him, is the Holy Spirit. Now remember, it's counterfeit, so it's not that they have the same
Right. They're
constituency.
basically impersonating.
Yeah, they're impersonating
For
the
lack of a
Trinity,
better
although
term.
the
Yeah.
Trinity is God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one with different personalities and functions, and they all operate together. What Satan counterfeits is the Trinity, but the form of the Trinity, not a similar thing, because he doesn't
Right.
have that power to do that. Okay, so during the first 3.5 years, when the beast, you remember the beast is the system, the one world government, which we're going to talk about here directly, is put in place, and it says that there's great wealth building during that time. In other words, things really turn out very, very well.
It's the perception of good.
Perception of wealth,
Perception of
because it's going to be a what they call a phantom wealth, and that would be similar to, right now I've got a private company. Well, I own stock in that company, and I could say to it, it's worth X, calculated. Now I can't go sell it. There's no buyer for it. So I have it. It's a perceived wealth, but I can't translate that into something different because there's no buyer for that stock that I own. So, and this is what it's going to be, is that in the tribulation, people are going to receive shares, value in the beast, the corporations, the corporate structure, and you'll look like it's gaining more and more and more. So you could check its value and say, hey, I got more today, but you can't go sell it.
Right. So just to clarify for me then, given that you said the mark of the beast will come, that will come at the beginning of the one world government, which should be the beginning of the tribulation, correct?
Yes.
So really those first 3.5 years, assuming we are not raptured pre-trib, assuming we're here for at least the beginning of the tribulation, those 3.5 years, while they may have the perception of prosperity for the majority of the world, that is not going to be the case for the remnant. And in fact, we would be living really, because we would not have access to the power and the wealth that the beast system is under.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yeah. And that'll be the fundamental.
Our preparation.
That's going to be the fundamental choice.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but if I don't take the beast, I can't participate. And God said, yes, I know. I'll direct you and provide for you and show you how to still receive my blessedness in spite of that. And again, we have Daniel as the example of that.
And can't you see though where the deception would easily come in there?
Oh yeah.
Because so many Christians, if you are not abiding and listening and asking and seeking in the midst of all of this, well, this is good, this is prosperity, this is God's favor on me in this time. Why would I not take the mark and enjoy this?
Exactly.
This can't be truly the mark if it's providing for me.
That's right.
There's a level of discernment and deception that we've got to pay attention to.
Oh yeah, and that's why we need each other. And we'll talk more about this because it's very specific and talked about in Scripture. But as we look at these seals being opened up, there's a lot of very negative things that happen. Well, during the first 3.5 years, for the populace of the world, they don't experience these awful things. And that's why there's a strong understanding that these likely are all opened up prior to the beginning of the tribulation. They're just ushering
because
in.
These are bad, or they will feel negative, and those first 3.5 years for those who have the mark of the beast are not going to feel negative.
That's right.
Is that basically what you're saying?
That's right. Except for the remnant who's going to say, yeah, we got a problem.
Yeah, this is bad. This is tribulation.
Okay, so John says, well, there's only one worthy of opening up the seals. Who's that? It's Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesus, who has, because of what he's done for us and is sitting at the right hand of the Father, he's worthy, which, by the way, and this is really cool about Jesus, is that in essence, because he sealed it,
Mm-hmm.
he knows all about it. So he does know everything that's in that scroll.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one that can do it. Now this is cool. When we see the movies about England and France, when they have the seal, who can open up the seal? The king.
Oh, that's interesting.
Only
Yeah,
the royalty.
you're right.
Only the royalty. That's
When
why
it's
it was
delivered,
sealed.
then
It's
they're allowed
delivered,
to. Yeah.
and I give you permission, or I open it up.
That's the only authority.
The
to
only
open it.
authority is to open up the seal. And by the way, if you violated that, you're out.
Right.
So Jesus sealed it.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows all about it. Interesting enough, he says, I don't actually know the day and hour. Only the Father does. So that as he undoes the seals, even he knows, because that there's still a time to this, that only the Father will finalize it. I know what's going to happen, and I can unseal it. So he says you can unseal it. Okay, so what is he unsealing toward?
Mm-hmm.
He's unsealing toward the tribulation.
Okay.
Okay, when the tribulation happens, remember it's a 7-year period.
Right.
At the beginning of it is what is put in place is one world government.
Mm-hmm.
A new system with new economics. It'll be an electronic
Right.
currency. So there'll be no longer dollars and yen and pounds and euros.
Right.
They'll all be gone.
One world economy and one world government.
One world
period.
economy, one
Yep.
world government that now will rule
Mm-hmm.
the entire world of how everybody is to function
Mm-hmm.
in terms of governance, what laws we put in place, which will replace, by the way, so we in America have the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
We have, scores and scores and books of laws that have been, given by the Congress and approved by the Senate and negotiated with the president and, supported by the Supreme Court. We operate under law.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's called our governance. So that, and this is, by the way, the issue with the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
The CDC came out and said everybody should be vaccinated.
Right.
Well, interesting enough, with our governance, they don't have the authority to do that
Right.
right today, at the moment. What should happen in order to make it law would be Congress would have to develop a bill, the Senate would have to agree and coordinate it together, say, okay, we now have the same bill. We vote on it, and we vote, a majority said yes, we give it to the president, he signs it, it becomes law. It can be challenged at the Supreme Court. Supreme Court can say, no, we don't agree with that, it's not law, or yes, we do, we agree with it, it's law. By the way, they can agree with it by doing something interesting and say, we're not taking the case, which is happening right now, by the way.
Which is, yes, you've seen an example
But
of that.
so the
yeah.
CDC has made this, and people have adopted it as law, even though it's not.
Okay.
So it's an interesting dynamic that, again, is this another birth pain that we're losing the essence of our normal democracy. Well, when the new one world government comes, all of that is basically completely eliminated. No Constitution, no Congress, no Senate, no presidency, no Supreme Court. The court elevates up to the court of the one world government, and everything that we've done is now basically lost. Okay, now that's what the seals are getting ready to move toward. Okay, now I want to talk about the one world government.
Okay.
Interesting enough, it's it's not a, well, where did that come from? And how and who did that? How is that possible? How could because wait a second, we as countries, we're not talking about that. Saying, let's all form one world government. Well, interesting enough, there's groups that have been working on this, interesting enough, for centuries.
Right.
So I'm gonna describe them to you.
Really right out in the open.
It's in the open, and you can all go online if you want to. I'm going to illustrate. I'm going to tell you what it is, and I would urge you to go online and go look. But they state unequivocally, openly, our desire, our purpose is to form one world government.
Yes.
Okay. The first one that I'm going to talk about is called the Skull and Bones Society. Founded in Yale University in 1832. They were linked immediately to the Illuminati, which I'll talk to in a minute. And their purpose, by the way, it's a secret society. So you can't read a lot about it because they don't publish much. But the one thing they do say is our goal is to have one world order. It's called One World Order. The Vanderbilts are part of that, the Rockefellers, the Kellogg's, and by the way, the Bush family. I don't know if
how do you know the who's that are
involved? Oh, they identify themselves. I'm part of the Skull and Bones.
Okay.
And you can go look it up.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember when George Senior Bush was president.
I do.
Well, he made speeches and continually spoke. I am trying to help get to one world order. Do you remember that at all?
I don't remember this. I didn't listen to the speeches.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, you can go back. I do remember it. I do remember it, and he was speaking openly. One world order, which is, by the way, the Skull and Bones, and these are all people that are high up in government, high up in business. And they were, attended Yale University and attended and joined what's called the Skull and Bones. Okay, the next one is called the Council of Foreign Relations. This is founded in New York City in 1921. And it was a group of people that said, let's get together, we influencers of the world, and let's set up called the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations. And our mission is one world order.
Interesting.
And they've been working at it since 1921. They're directly connected to the world banking system and the Federal Reserve System, which I'll talk about in a second. And they understood that everything, one world order, is really about economics.
Okay.
Governance will be established, but they were looking at it as controlling the economics of the world through their governance, not let's go gain power through governance and see what economic happens. They do it the opposite. Okay. Let's control the economics. So people that are of CFR are people that are in government, people in the CIA, etc. A person by the name of Joe Biden.
Oh, interesting.
Is CFR. The Bushes are CFR. Jimmy Carter, Clinton's, Dick Cheney, Cuomo's, by the way.
Interesting. Okay.
Gates, who used to be the CIA, Alan Greenspan, Mikhail Gorbachev, Newt Gingrich is CFR.
So you've really got both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ruth Ginsburg and Neil Gorsuch are both CFR, Supreme Court justices. John Kerry, Henry Kissinger, people in Fox, Robert Murdoch is CFR. Janet Napolitano, former Homeland Security under Obama. Rockefellers, Dan Rather, Condoleezza Rice, people at PBS, George Stephanopoulos, Barbara Walters, and then a guy by the name of George Soros.
Mm-hmm.
And George Soros is a multi-billionaire who has worked at funding a lot of things in the world to create chaos in order to bring about the one world order. And he funds, and we can get into all this stuff. Okay, so interesting enough, and I just looked it up. This will surprise people. Trump, when he was in office, 75% of all of his senior appointees, from the cabinet to staff to people that headed departments, 75% of them were CFR.
Really?
Council for Foreign Relations. Okay, well, they've been replaced by Biden's people. Okay, and I looked this up. 92% of all of Biden's appointees are CFR, Council for Foreign Relationships. And that's why people, like to get into political arguments. Well, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm this, I'm that. I try to tell them, there's a bigger game going on here, folks.
Right.
And it don't matter. They're both sides of the aisle are playing this game of moving because of their commitment to the goal, to the objective of one world government. And that's why, don't look to your political party. Okay, the next one is the Federal Reserve System, set up in 1913, not controlled by the U.S. government in any way. It's not a branch of the government. Most people have no idea that that's true.
Right. We just assume, yes.
They assume, well, it's a U.S. Federal Reserve. It's controlled by the government, because doesn't the president nominate the reserve chairman, and obviously he controls it. Interesting enough, no. He just does the form of it. But there is no control of the Federal Reserve by any U.S. government branch in any way. They don't report to anybody, and nobody can tell them what to do or not to do. And again, the world, when they set it up, their goal was world economic control through monetary and money policies. That's what they set it up originally.
And that is in print that someone could look up and they could see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, Thomas Jefferson warned that if it ever set up a central banking system, it'll be the downfall of the United States Constitution and the U.S. democracy.
Interesting.
And he predicted it way back when. Okay, well, it's the Federal Reserve is privately owned. Okay, that means that they control all this money because it's their money.
Right.
It's not the government money. It's not a institution money. It's owned by the central bank of every nation. Well, Rothschild is the one that owns the majority of it, and he's the leader of it. And I'll talk about him in a second. The other ones are Lazard Brothers out of Paris. These are investment bankers. Israel Safe, investment banker out of Italy. Kuhn Loeb out of Germany. Warburg Hamburg out of Amsterdam. Lehman Brothers, New York City. Goldman and Sachs, New York City. J.P. Morgan, New York City. Morgan Stanley, New York City. And Rockefeller, New York City.
Interesting.
And a few others. And they're all CFR.
Okay.
That have a one world government in place. Okay, the Rothschilds are the one that really put everything together. This is a family out of Germany in the 18th century, and they established an international banking network. And their desire was to control the central banks of every nation. And by the way, today, they own and operate every single central bank in the world.
Really?
Every one of them, including the Fed. They wanted to acquire control over government officials. They wanted to control over higher institution of education, acquire control over the press, and have those all subordinated to their goals. So they established a group that's called the Illuminati.
I've heard of this before. I don't know a lot about it, but I have
It's the
heard.
Rothschilds, and they just said that the Illuminati, and what they noticed was the Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
And the Freemasons are a group that was way back, in the 1500s, 1600s, and their goal wasn't necessarily one world government. It was just to have influence over the world. So what they did is recruit leaders in government, education, business, etc., to join the Freemasons. George Washington was one of them. There were a lot of the founding fathers of America were Freemasons as influencers back in the 1700s. Well, Rothschild saw that they're all in place. So he basically just went to them and said, here's what I'm going to be up to, and I can do this, and I've got the money to do this. Why don't you join me? So the Masons became basically a subset of the Illuminati. And that's why people confuse the two. There's still differences, but they're really together.
But they are tied together. Okay.
Right. The Rothschilds initiated the War of 1812 with Britain because Congress didn't renew their charter, their banking charter. That's why started the War of 1812. By the end of the 19th century, they literally control, through their banking system and derivatives, which is now computerized, by the way, over half of the world's wealth is in these groups of people, which is going to ultimately get there. They control every single bank in all the world, and that includes the Euro, United States, China, Russia. All of that's controlled. They control the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. They control the world's wealth, and they're behind-the-scenes leaders of the Federal Reserve System. So as we talk about opening of the seals, which we just started, I needed to set up the premise that the purpose of it is to direct us to the tribulation. The tribulation is set up by the one world government, so that is part and parcel to the four seals. They're operating, and these seals are being unleashed into the process of setting up the one world government. And all we can say at this point is, well, there's organizations that have that as a goal, and they do have influence. And by the way, the central bank, owned by the Rothschilds and people associated with that, own all the central banks. They already control the world wealth. And I'll go into next time a little bit more about the activity of the central bank, and I'll tell you something interesting next time about something that is now true that normally would be done by a central bank, but they can't anymore because of the debt load of all the nations. And I'll talk about that next time. So we're kind of long on time, but we're a little bit long on time, but it was worth getting into it. So I hope you had a
it's so good for us to get the history. I'm assuming a lot of listeners like me, this is new information, so it's a lot to chew on too. And even if you've heard bits and parcels of it, not all in one place. So it is great to have you unpack it for us.
So if you got questions, send them in. Questions at afjministry.com or on YouTube comments. And Kathy, I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll pick up Discerning God's Will next time, and then we'll pick this up next Friday because it's getting really interesting. So
it is getting very interesting. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.